Love podcasts, hate nonsense. The PoliticsJOE podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Woo! Hello.
Hi, Ed. They only whoop when it's just you. Mm-hmm. Like you arriving, big noise comes from the gallery. They're so happy. And then because they're also, in that intro, they're not just clapping for you, they're also clapping for me. And so they're more muted because they like you more than me.
So I'm the sun, you're the cloud.
Yeah.
Ava's the moon?
That's a bit sexist, isn't it?
Yeah, probably. I couldn't work out a way to do that without it being gendered.
Yeah, sorry. The Chad masculine sun versus the effete moon.
No, women are controlled by moons.
Yeah.
Yes. How did I miss that? Yes.
I was
like the tide.
It's weird. We were talking about, for some reason, I was involved in a smoking area conversation the other week. That was.
Why were you there?
Yeah, I wonder why that was.
Do you know? It's actually. I'm also lying. I'm saying it was like that sort of esque conversation, but it was inside next to the bar. Anyway, but look, that's by the by.
So you're having a conversation.
I was having a conversation. This guy was going on about how much he hates, how certain women love horoscopes and like all of this stuff. And then he was like, some women really believe that they're that their periods are in line with the moon. I was like, no, they really are. And he was like, oh, what next? Next, you're going to tell me Capricorn's in Venus or whatever. And I was like, no, hang on. The moon thing is very. Do you know tides? Tides are determined by the moon. And he's going, oh, give over. And I'm like, okay.
In fairness, it is mental.
Huh?
It is. If there's like a solar eclipse, a men's sperm count goes up or something. Like it's mental.
Really? Because what? Because you won't masturbate. Do you mind there's an eclipse? You're outside looking at that instead of inside.
I can't see the boobs because there is no sun.
I've got a solar powered laptop. So it's the one time it gets a break.
Yeah.
I've got a hand crank powered laptop.
Yeah.
Then it turns on myself.
He's a very good chef, that guy. But
Who?
the man who was talking about the horoscopes.
Which chef?
This is I'm not going to say that, but he was real cooking with his horoscope.
It's Thomas Straker.
Right. To business.
Onwards.
I think we could have segued there. Speaking of men,
Yes, they're lost. The boys are lost.
Thank God Netflix is here.
Well,
Gareth Southgate.
Yeah. I think we're going to do adolescence deep dive tomorrow
Yes, you've got
because
that to look forward to.
Because Ava needs to watch all of the documentary.
I need to watch the entire documentary.
Yep.
You need to listen to the album
Yeah.
And all of the tweets.
and fill out the sticker book.
Yeah. Very good.
The Top Trumps collection as well.
If you haven't watched PMQs, it will become clear what the gag is right now. But there was a masculinity double header this week because we've had adolescents going massive on Netflix, and then Gareth Southgate has spoken publicly for the first time since departing as England manager.
Was that the first time?
Yeah.
I'm sure he said something else.
It's the first. I think it's the obviously he's
It's the first Dimbleby lecture after the.
Yeah, it's the first Dimbleby lecture he's given since departing as England manager. Possibly the last as well. He's been talking. We could probably put some audio in, couldn't we?
I think we can put the clip in.
I think we could drop a little bit of audio in.
As real-world communities and mentorship declines, young men end up withdrawing, reluctant to talk or express their emotions. They spend more time online searching for direction and are falling into unhealthy alternatives like gaming, gambling, and pornography. And this void is filled by a new kind of role model who do not have the best interests at heart. These are callous, manipulative, and toxic influences whose sole drive is for their own gain. They willingly trick young men into believing that success is measured by money or dominance, never showing emotion, and that the world, including women, is against them. They are as far away as you could possibly get from the role models our young men need in their lives.
Right, Ava. Gareth Southgate talking about sort of declines in mentorship, lads watching too much porn, doing too much gambling, too much gaming as well, which is a rare sighting of gaming, I think, in this conversation. What's Gareth Southgate getting at?
Well, he's actually talking about accessibility to it, right? He's not saying that the frequency of which young men are interacting with their phones is too much. He's actually putting the onus on how available it is. He's essentially saying that they are at the behest of their phones. He's actually making a political point, right? That the Labour government originally wanted to tackle, which was the accessibility of very hardcore pornography, which has been slightly watered down recently, although Jess Phillips is still trying her best. It's about, well, that's it. My point's done. If anyone else wants to pick up the mantle.
I think...
Sorry, is that not how we do podcasting anymore?
Oh my God. You didn't stop speaking and then started, why don't you reply? Why don't you say anything? Because I was listening.
I'm out of control. I'm a runaway train.
Stop me! Somebody stop me! The other thing he was saying, which I found quite interesting...
That was like the Ed Miliband conversation, wasn't it? That's what that felt like.
The space.
That's deep PoliticsJOE law, isn't it?
Drop a comment if you remember the
Twitter
doing
space.
a Twitter space until Ed Miliband joins.
And he joined immediately?
Yes.
Yeah.
There was no jeopardy in that.
No, there wasn't. Anyway.
Well, there was jeopardy because I couldn't hear Ollie.
Oh, that was so funny. You kept interrupting.
I didn't interrupt. I was like, why can't I hear? Why is no one else speaking?
And we kept on Slack like, Eva! At here, at channel.
I was crying. I actually was crying. Anyway, so back on Gareth Southgate.
He was saying as well that young men aren't given the chance to fail enough, and that they don't get the chance to fail, and not only fail, but then work to overcome the things that they're failing at, which I think is kind of a commentary on perhaps like competitiveness, the competitive nature. I spoke about this a bit actually with Alex Mahon, who we're going to have the interview out this week on the podcast feed, so watch out for that.
With a woman?
Yeah, it was a woman
What does she
talking.
know?
Yeah, exactly.
Bloody hell.
That was the interview.
God, that is
I just kept
DEI,
going,
isn't
really?
it?
What would you know?
That's the moon speaking.
Yeah.
That's the moon, actually. What do you think he means by the point there about failing enough? What is an environment or an example of something that a boy would be failing in that they're not currently in?
Well, I think what his argument is that essentially if you don't teach people that it's okay to fail, and that could be anything, I guess, whether it's like getting rejected from a university or a job application, by a woman or a man, failing at sport, losing at sport, take your pick, failing a test, and creating an environment in which you say, did you try? And if you did, this is an opportunity for you to learn. It's not the end. And instead, you create an environment in which they fail and then they go in on themselves and they're not prepared to take risks in future.
I thought that might be a social comment though as well. Look, I don't know. I think that there's sort of like, not to extrapolate too much on what Southgate was, but if I will. I think because rhetoric has got so heightened sort of between the sexes, and I think that women have been demanding now for a good decade that they are treated better, that they are spoken to better, that they're not assaulted. That means that the sort of the threshold at which a man can make an error in a social interaction is actually a lot lower than it would have been earlier in the 21st century. And so I think that there's sort of like an expectation from women where perhaps they might encounter a man might be having a conversation with a woman. Perhaps they don't interact with women that often, and they might be mansplaining, or they might be rather aggressive in tone, in a way that they would normally speak to their male peers that doesn't quite suit speaking to a woman. And rather than be able to make the mistake and then be corrected or learn just through other social interactions, I think that we sort of jump down their throats. So there's not really an opportunity. It's almost like you have to know how to interact with women before you do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to sort of make this like the footballification of this argument. I'm not trying to say that there's this like
No, I understand what you're
huge gender
saying.
divide, but
Yeah.
I do think that it's more difficult to make an error in a social interaction that then might frighten someone from entering the arena at all.
Yeah.
On the footballification thing, if we are learning about how to fail, it does make sense to hear it from Gareth Southgate.
Oh, fucking hell.
That's
seriously.
Sean and Laura?
Yeah.
Am I right?
How'd you get on at how did you get on at the World Cup?
Same as you.
How did you get on? No, really not the same as us.
Zero trophies.
I remember.
Can I make my actual point?
Oh, come on, make
I
your
remember
actual
you
point.
lot.
No,
I remember you
come
lot.
on.
You drew with us, and it was like fucking Christmas had
But it
come
was
early.
Christmas.
Back
You
on
are
the point.
pathetic. Pick a sport. You're bad at it.
Oh, I thought we were allowed to fail now.
Good grief.
Anyway.
Yeah, well, it's a good job. You're Scottish, isn't it?
In your point about failing, all the culture.
Oh, are we back on it now? I'll
Yes.
stop painting my nails.
Thank you. The boys' minute is up. About winning. If there's so much emphasis online or content online about being a winner is someone who drives a Bugatti, like lives like Dan Bilzerian with like 10 questionable models living in your house. If things like that is being, if you're only shown unbelievable success, and I think that's the point of maybe.
Is that success though?
But
Do you think
that's presented as what I don't think it's success. Of
the
course, I don't think it's
parameters of success have changed, right?
yeah, but and they also have anyone who succeeds actually in content creation has success. Like the money you can now make from being like an online influencer and people who have these massive captive audiences. That is the lifestyle that they are being constantly presented with, and that's what they see winning and success as being. So actual like positive role models in your life, whether you're like you've got a teacher who's like a nice guy, but if you are down this rabbit hole of like, or even a rabbit hole really, if you're just seeing online that, or being told online that someone isn't a winner because they don't own multiple properties and go in private jets, you might consider any man in your life, which is presumably all men in your life, to be losers. And why on earth would you listen to them? What did your dad know? Your dad leases his car. Your dad's a middle manager. Why the hell should you listen to your dad? Like if you're never presented with actual examples of people failing and success on social media, that's zero sum as well. Like you're not going to be shown any content that doesn't succeed. Like if you're being shown this, for example, this is a success. How many podcasts do people launch that get no views necessarily? Like I think
It's very alpha of you to pivot this into talking about your own successes. I'm very proud of you.
And his own podcast. How male of you?
but do you know what I mean? Like,
I know what you mean. I know exactly
in
what
what
you mean.
example online can people unless you're listening to literature, how to fail, which I don't think the market for that is young men.
Yeah.
But can we twin that with the sort of like, because this is what's damaging about, I think that why men are damaged at the moment is because a lot of men, going back to what I was saying, they don't really know how to interact with women, and then seeing the sort of visuals that you just talked about, which is like having 10 models in your house and seeing that as sort of the pinnacle of success, that will damage how you interact with women.
100%.
Because that is, firstly, it's very damaging to women, right? That you're sort of this disposable sex object that just lives around a man and you're there to pleasure him, either, physically or, just sort of to be there as sort of a marker of his success rather than a person in your own right. That then damages, say, if you, a young man who wants to get a girlfriend, if they think that the way that relationship works is that the woman is an appendage to his life rather than a support network, someone who works in a team with them. If you're not familiar with that idea, I think that'd be very destructive. Like if you're going off to university and you want to get your first girlfriend, you think, well, I need to get the most attractive thing out there because otherwise other men won't respect me. That ideology is ruining young men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what you're both talking about, and is the component that's very often missed in this entire conversation that's happening more broadly, is that what we're talking about is downstream of our political and economic system, which, I think it's like a little bit removed. But Ava, the misogyny that you're talking about, I think is a defining characteristic of modern society, no doubt. I think the sort of the success symbols and status symbols that Ed's talking about are quite literally downstream of consumerist materialist culture, which yes is enhanced and amplified by the advent of social media, but certainly still predates it. You know, the sort of the return of the aesthetics now of the 80s and 90s, greed is good, etc. It's not a new idea. And I think the thing that's missed by most people, but more astute observers haven't, for example, Seamus O'Reilly in the Irish Examiner was writing about this today, or yesterday, which is that, and you make the point as well, Ed, the problems that sort of affect this generation of men and also affect this generation of women, right, are the fact that third spaces have essentially been obliterated. Swimming pools, libraries. It's not just sporting things. You know, football pitches, yes, have closed down, but so have youth centres, so have libraries, as a result of austerity economics and 14 years of a political ideology that less informed observers would be forgiven for thinking was essentially to just destroy the social fabric. And as a result of which, we're also, wringing our hands and saying, well, why are all these guys spending all their time online while they're escaping into these worlds of supermodels and Bugattis? And it's because they don't really have anywhere else to go. And I think that's the primary driver of this. And I think I think the phrase Seamus O'Reilly's was money for nothing, right? Where it's like, okay, I don't really have anything in my life, and there's this guy who actually has something, and he's telling me I can achieve the same by just buying his meme coin, or getting into forex trading, or going to Hustlers University, or whatever it is. And whilst I do think actually there is a point about kind of discourse and whether or not men have been given the space to fail, and whether or not they are afforded the opportunities to like make social faux pas or learn how to healthily interact with women. And I do think there is a part of it. I think mostly it's a product of broader economic and political systems.
May I push back with something Gareth said? I'm not sure.
Yes.
Thank you. Gareth?
Me?
Thank you.
I will play the role of the Gareth Southgate defender in this conversation.
You're in the play. I'm not sure classing gaming along with gambling and pornography is accurate or sensible. I think if we're talking about constructive ways,
it's a activity though, isn't it?
But you can play online with your friends.
Yeah, it's
like
social
you
as well.
headset on, you and the boys are playing Fortnite. Like I think is actually quite. That maybe shows the generational problem with someone like Gareth Southgate talking about this. In that, if like lots of people, we talk to people online. Say you're having a really crap time at school, but you have like a really solid group of online friends. Like say from playing like game like Minecraft, game like Fortnite. Like there's all these like Roblox, like all
Grand
these
Theft Auto.
But then like you can do it like like it's a positive thing having like
going
people
home
to
to
talk
put
to
your headset on and drive your car into a couple of prostitutes
and talking about your mental health at the same time.
I'm kidding. No, I think you're right. Yeah, because that's what's always missed, and I think you actually articulate it very well. The sort of frustration about banning phones for under 16-year-olds, thinking that internet is evil. Rather than actually, it can be a constructive place for you to be.
Totally agree.
Learn a lot about yourself, about other people.
What I would say is, Ed, can you not say that about all three of those things? Because I don't think there's an intrinsic evil in me sticking a tenner on the Grand National, right? Like I occasionally bet on sport because if I'm watching if I find myself in a pub because my mate wants to watch a game and I don't have a horse in the race, I'm inclined to stick a fiver on one of the teams because then I have skin in the game and it makes it more enjoyable for me. On a New Year's Day, I've been to the races and had a great time with my friends. I've ploughed multiple days. I think I've logged more than a month's playtime on Call of Duty 4, right? On COD 4.
Wasn't sure which one of those you were going to say there.
Yeah, I've put at least a month's playtime into Pornhub. But
Gold Star member.
But also like. This is probably a level of frankness you guys don't want me to engage with as your boss, but like most other people, I have also watched porn, right? Like, I would, to be charitable to Gareth, I think probably what he's saying is, if you're spending all of your time gaming, if you're spending all of your time gambling, or if as an increasing number, and this is the worrying part, right? The increasing number of young boys who say that they watch porn to cure their boredom, not for sexual gratification, they are just bored and put porn on and like watch it for a couple of hours.
You can put a law on why they watch pornography.
No, it's there was
horny. What is the charge?
They have to
wanted to crank my heart.
there's like a disclaimer that comes up from Pornhub at the beginning that'll be like, are you here because you are bored or horny?
You better be horny.
No, there's a recent survey by the name of the think tank is on the tip of my tongue and I can't quite pull it. I spoke about it in the interview with Alex, right? That it's increasingly, when young boys are surveyed about why they watch porn, it's increasing in salience that they say, I do it because I'm bored.
Yeah, that is mad. But I don't think like the harm done by being massively into pornography and gambling done to yourself, I would not class gaming as anywhere near.
Do you think?
That.
Especially if you're not someone who likes going outside, like a lot. You know, some people just are a bit agoraphobic. Agoraphobic,
Yeah.
or just like I don't know, just like they like gaming. I don't like. What's wrong with getting really good at computer games versus like sinking money into gambling?
But this is my point. You can sink money into Fortnite. You can sink your money into Ultimate Team.
Okay,
You can
I think
spend.
that we're getting a bit pedantic on the point here. I think what he's said. I think I'm actually going to defer to Ed on this, and I'm going to say I actually think Ed has won this argument. I think.
Right. Okay.
2-0.
One Ed.
If you wanted me to
0
stop,
Southgate.
If you wanted me to stop
Which is
arguing, why would you say that? Because all that makes me want to do is argue with him more.
Too bad you can't.
Look,
But I do also.
I disagree with you.
Shake my hand.
I
disagree
do
with you.
also think, though, that there's sort of like one thing that I genuinely probably have a semi-answer for it. But like, I think that like one thing that's really unhelpful, and he's talking about mentorship and like online, like the sort of men that boys are looking at. Like, I think of the like, I know I've got an obsession with it, but like the Whatever podcast, you know, the American podcast where they bring in a load of
Oh yeah.
like they bring in a lot of sex workers, and then that guy just sits in the middle of them and essentially makes fun of them. And then this format has now been repeated by loads of other offshoots, and it's essentially like, if you look at it face value, right? What I think the untrained eye, or like the would think, is that it's like a man who believes in the nuclear family and believes in American values, trying to teach society why you shouldn't be a sex worker, right? That's the sort of setup for it. But actually, it's a really thinly veiled attempt. It's basically a medium at which he can talk about how much he hates women, right? He hates women. And sex workers are a really easy woman to have on to denigrate, because no one in society will stand up for a sex worker, right? Apart from, you know, you're not going to go out on a limb, a lot of people, to defend them. That's a conversation for another time. But that sort of like thinly veiled misogyny that is now so readily available, I think that translating into day-to-day relationships, like that really worries me. They're sort of laughing at them. There's this one clip where these women are talking about, he says to them like, well, what was the Cold War? And the women are answering the question. They're saying, oh, it was Vietnam and North Korea. Another one was like, well, it's a Cold War because there was no actual nuclear, you know, da-da-da. And he's just like, before they can finish the sentence, he cuts them off. He laughs at them. He just sits there sort of like condescendingly laughing. That's just like, if a 9-10-year-old boy watched that, you're just validating them in thinking women are stupid.
Yeah. Well, they should be watching Adolescents, shouldn't they? Those 10-year-old boys. And we're going to talk about this more. We're going to talk about the show more tomorrow. I think we're going to go deep as hell in it. But it would be remiss of me over Santina and Ed Campbell to say I think we've been rolling for about half an hour, and we probably should do some PMQs.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Good,
I didn't
good
realize.
combo.
That's really freaked me out how near that TV is. That set my eyes going all weird. That.
You are getting full IMAX Starmer when the clip comes on.
It's going to be like being in the room with him, except it's going to be nothing like that, because Keir is actually rather small.
Do you want me to go and stand in front of the telly?
Have you? I think Keir has a bit of the King Charles sausage fingers about him these days.
Really?
Yeah.
Goatee?
I don't know what it means. Is it a portent of our forthcoming doom?
It's going to be like
The head of state and the Prime
Have you
Minister.
seen The Shape of Water?
No.
There's a character in that whose hands get really infected, and the fingers, you just have to start ripping his fingers off.
What?
It's what the,
Well, let's hope the Prime Minister doesn't do that at Prime Minister's questions. Is this what you want, Kenny?
Come on then. Should we go?
Go on. Yeah, okay. Roll the clip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A lady came to see me recently who needed help. She had a disability. It meant that her children have to help her cut up her food. They have to help her wash beneath the waist. They have to supervise her as she goes to the toilet. Under the Tory welfare system, we were able to get that lady on PIP. Under the Prime Minister's new proposed system, she will get zero. Nothing. And after 14 years of the Tory government, and many of us wanting to see the back of them, can the Prime Minister answer one question? What was the point if Labour are going to do this?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've lived with the impact of disability in our family through my mother and brother all my life. I do understand the human impact of this, but the current system is morally and economically indefensible, and we're right to reform it, and nobody should be defending the broken status quo. We are proceeding on three principles: that if you can work, you should work. If you need help into work, the state should help you, not hinder you. And if you can never work, you must be supported and protected. They are the right principles, but we can't leave the current system as it is.
So Colin Eastwood there,
Leader of the opposition,
asking Keir Starmer about the welfare reforms, cuts to disability benefits. And I think it is striking, and one of the reasons why we've included it is because Kemi Badenoch did not ask Keir Starmer about welfare reforms. She did not ask him about cutting disability benefits, something of which his party, I would say, is verging on open rebellion over. And that was striking to me because on the big Parliament day around the benefits stuff, she announced that she made her biggest policy announcement yet as Conservative Party leader, that they were reneging on net zero by 2050. And any possible sort of... Not only did she do that on one of the biggest news days politically for several weeks that wasn't about her, she also did it on one of the biggest news days politically to the disadvantage of her political opponent. And I think that, and coupled with what she said at Prime Minister's Questions, which was essentially she was going on about employer national insurance contributions, and she kept trying to establish this premise that...
I thought you'd fall off your chair.
I thought Ed had walked off, yeah. She kept trying to establish this premise that the spring statement is an emergency budget and isn't a fiscal event that happens every year. And I just, the takeaway, and we will talk about Colin in a second, I think she's just bad. I think she's bad at politics, and I don't think she's getting better.
I suppose that's what she's not entirely wrong to say that the spring statement is sort of it is almost an emergency budget if you're having to find new cuts and new because I'm blindsiding you with this because I agreed with you in the office and now on the podcast I'm disagreeing with you.
Good content.
She's not entirely wrong.
Keep it fresh.
I think
But I understood what she's trying to say as I feel like she's trying to make it out like Rachel Reeves is having to, essentially do a mini budget type fiscal event.
She sort of is though, isn't she? Because
the spring statement happens every year.
No, I do know that, but she is almost having to do that because it's not all adding up. They wiped out all of their headroom and they've had to rejig the defence spending. So Kemi's not entirely wrong, but I think that her communication is bad. And I think if you are the leader of the opposition, that's probably something you should have mastered, right? It's quite important. It goes into your point as well about sort of announcing your first big policy about abolishing net zero on the day that your political opponent is already drowning, facing this real wash of backbenchers that are going to rise up. I couldn't think of what the word was there. Sorry.
Ed? I was going to say it is an interesting media tactic. Like you're saying, like Rachel Reeves is up against the ropes. And Badenoch's tactic to try and make this seem like an emergency budget, despite it being like an annual fiscal event, shows how kind of just misguided the tactic is. Because like everyone's like, well, no, it's a spring statement. Like although it can be presented that way, I think the vast majority of people are like, no, it's a spring statement. What are you doing? Like she is on the ropes, yeah, but it's not an emergency budget.
I think that if they'd phrased it better and they said, you just presented a fiscal plan to us, are you telling us that was wrong, that you miscalculated?
Just highlight how much trouble she's instead of saying it's something that it isn't, just being like, you're in trouble, aren't you? You're in trouble.
And I know that you didn't mean it like this, but that whole like Rachel Reeves is on the ropes thing. It had me thinking she's not on the ropes at all. This doesn't pertain to your point, but people will make the argument, or they'll make the argument that there's this big fiscal black hole, and people say, well, they've got to make cuts somewhere. Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, is not on the ropes. They can redefine the fiscal rules whenever they would like to and however they would like to. And it's sort of like this kind of fictitious idea that there's a pot of money from which you take, like the exchequer as a pot, is just a complete lie.
The point I will make is the same that I made about Conservative chancellors, which is that your fiscal rules are arbitrary. You make them up. And it's something that Kemi could say, and I would encourage her to say, is like, you're having to make these cuts to disability benefits, you're rejigging the military spending, and I'm sure the other measures that we're going to hear about in, it's next week, isn't it? You're just having to do that because you have arbitrarily said these are our fiscal rules. And your cast iron commitment to them is entirely self-imposed. You don't have to, you can just change them.
It's almost like wearing a chastity belt if you put it on yourself.
I'm an incel.
Why would anyone fuck me? She, like...
Swallowing the key.
What a shame. Oh no.
Does anyone have sex with me?
She already did change the definition of how they calculated debt, right, to suit her own purposes. And in exactly the same way, she could change them now. And, with the same, I don't think you could say it's like a mandate issue. I don't think you could say it's an honesty issue, because on literally every single other fucking thing, they are quite willing to just do whatever they want, whatever they said in the manifesto.
Yeah.
But may I raise another question? Perhaps this would be more interesting to have a discussion with the economists that will come in next week when we're doing the spending review.
You hear that, Ed? She doesn't want to hear what you have to say.
No.
Rather than me make the point, but I just have a question. I have a question.
I'm listening.
When she redefined the fiscal rules, right, a lot of it was like basically bouncing off of new infrastructure projects. Like that wouldn't count as debt, that would count as investment, and that's how she tweaked things. Well, the National Sovereign Wealth Fund, that money is now going to be used for Ukraine or defence spending, a bit of Chagos Islands. There haven't been any spades in the ground yet on any actual investment packages. Like I haven't seen any signatures or exchange of cash.
That was a nice Sunakism. I like that.
Okay.
Spades in the ground.
Spades in the ground.
Yeah.
So my question is, if they're not actually getting on with any of the investment that it was integral to redefining the fiscal rules, do the fiscal rules exist? But do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah.
If you're not... Anyway,
what if the real fiscal rules were the friends we made along the way? Yeah.
I think that would be a good question to put next week.
That is a good question.
I agree.
Should we get into column?
Yeah, let's talk about column. I mean, so he's attacking the Prime Minister on cutting disability benefit, right? And I think Starmer is kind of straw manning in his answer, because I think the vast majority, maybe other than the Green Party, but I still think they would agree, right? The principles that he says, these are the guiding principles by which we are approaching these reforms. And he says, if you need help into work, the state should help you. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. If you could never work, you must be supported and protected.
Yep.
Don't think anyone disagrees with that. And if you can work, you should work. Don't think anyone disagrees with that. But the kicker is, we're radically overhauling PIP payments to the tune that possibly about 1 million people aren't going to receive funding anymore. Do you know what I mean? It's like he's dressing it up as this. Here are our guiding principles.
Yep.
And I don't think anyone disagrees with them. I don't think the Conservatives disagree with them. To be fair, I actually don't think the Greens disagree with them. I think most right-headed people would listen to those things and say, yeah, I agree. But there is a huge disconnect, I think, between those stated guiding principles and the actual policy announcements that they're making.
Yeah, and also it doesn't really take into account the reality of the benefit system.
Yeah.
That it's been completely undone over the past 14 years. People are barely getting by as is. We've met several people on all the course of our reporting who've had humiliating experiences at just engaging
assessments
with the benefits system. I was speaking to someone who works in the homeless sector, and they were talking about how dreadful this is going to be for clients that they work with. So, for example, say you have a dual diagnosis, which means you have severe mental health issues, but you're also addicted to drugs or alcohol or something. essentially you're passed from pillar to post until basically you kick either drugs, because the mental health services won't engage with you because you're treated as an addiction issue. And if you're ping-ponging between these services, your only real income is PIP. And if that's being cut, you're being left in an incredibly vulnerable situation. They told me that county lines gangs are now going after vulnerable adults. They're stopping going after school kids. They're going after vulnerable adults who are slipping through the cracks. And this will create more and more of these adults. On a kind of similar point, but separate anecdote, I was at the landlord convention today, because it's the day that ends in Y. And I asked I was curious to see what one of the landlords thought about this, and they were like, "Oh, it's astonishing. This is a socialist government doing this."
Again, my offer that I have made a couple of weeks in a row now. If any of you on the right would like to understand the left a bit more. So Paul Kohler, is that how you're saying it? Do you reckon, the Liberal Democrat? Yeah. He talked about cuts that were being made to eating disorder services. He wasn't saying there were cuts, they're just sort of like local boards are having to make do with what they have, they're having to rejig, and then that's going to essentially lead to large cuts. And I looked it up, and it's the Royal College of Psychiatrists, they reckon that it's around £835,000 that these integrated care boards are going to have to find. And these reductions range from 3,000 to 112,000 across these individual independent care boards. But it's at the same time as these sort of cuts or reductions are happening, there's been a 13% increase in young people being referred to eating disorder clinics. It's interesting when you think about where those people will end up. He actually said this really awful thing, which is similar to what you said about mental health or drug addiction. He said that people are turning up to receive treatment and they're being told to come back when they're thinner. But it's like the Labour government's entire argument is that young people are not going to work. Well, say you've got a young person who might have quite serious anorexia. If they're not able to receive clinical help, they're never going to be in a position where they can go back to work. They're just going to be left to languish. If you're not offering that step back, what's going to become of them? They will end up as someone who's chronically unwell on PIP payments, possibly for the rest of their lives. Because if you don't cure, well, you never cure anorexia, but if you don't solve the immediate problem with anorexia in the really short early window, you will have problems for the rest of your life and be debilitatingly, possibly disabled forever.
And crucially, how we're talking about this affects young people, right? One of the measures they're talking about is making it so that you just you can't make claims until you're 22.
Yeah.
As if no one under the age of 22 could ever possibly be severely disabled.
Yeah.
Like it
doesn't happen. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I think it's a product of the fact that because of 14 years of the Conservatives, which Keir Starmer likes to make a big deal of being a bad period of government, right? The scale of the cuts, particularly under the Osborne and coalition government, but by no means reversed, apart from maybe in some areas like you could say about health spending, but by no means reversed by the follow-on Conservative governments, right? It's something like 70% of schools now have less money, are given less funding now than they were in 2010, right? Just to give you a sense of the scale of the cuts.
But why would they need more money? There haven't been any inflationary pressures on it.
Well, absolutely. And so you end up in a situation where Liz Kendall is having to make cuts like that, i.e. saying, well, no one under 22 can be disabled, because there's actually very few programs left to cut. Do you know what I mean? It's a byproduct of by continuing that program of cuts, by continuing that program of austerity, it's not as if there was fat has returned to the bones and now it needs slimming down again. So you're fucking chipping away at the fucking femur with the knife you're cutting them with.
But she doesn't have to make those cuts, which is the point that we made before. Those are not the cuts that you have to make. You can alter your fiscal rules, or you can bring in a wealth tax.
Yep.
I'm worrying that wealth tax is sort of losing all of its meaning now.
Well,
because it almost feels like a kind of a knee-jerk response, that it's getting watered down in its meaning.
On that point, Ava Santina, shall we have the next clip?
Please.
Roll the clip.
Sam, this TV's going to turn off.
We have a deeply unfair, unequal economic system where vast numbers of people are struggling, yet billionaires are getting richer and richer. Does the Prime Minister really think that the way to tackle this is to put the onus onto older people, children, and now sick and disabled people, rather than on the shoulders of the super rich with a wealth tax, those people who could most easily afford to pay? And if the Prime Minister uses the phrase difficult choices in his answer, please will he specify difficult choices for whom?
Well,
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we do have a proportional tax system, and we have raised tax on the wealthiest under this government. But her advice would count for a bit more if their manifesto hadn't been a recipe for £80 billion of extra borrowing. That is to do exactly what Liz Truss did to the economy, and that doesn't help any of the people that she's claiming to support.
It just doesn't engage.
I'm so tired of hearing these lines. The public are too. Who on earth is advising them that it's a good idea to keep saying that there's a £22 billion black hole, that there was a mess that the last Conservative government left them in? How do they not remember that note that kept coming out? Was it Grant Shapps? Or no, which minister was it who kept bringing it up? It wasn't Grant Shapps. Liam Byrne's letter to the Treasury.
Greg Cants?
They all did. They all did. All the Tories.
It was Greg Cants, but they kept bringing it up. There's no money left. And everyone used to go, okay, that was 14 years ago. Get over it.
There's almost an attitude, it seems like, that Keir Starmer thinks, as a result, a consequence of the 2024 general election was that you cannot criticise the Labour government, like that there are no other opinions, that there is no such thing as good faith criticism or constructive criticism of his government. He doesn't engage with any actual, even like that was a perfectly measured question. It wouldn't really have made a difference if it was an angry question. The substance of it was totally valid. And to just reject it out of hand, to not engage with the substance of the issue, is so disingenuous. And actually, it's just contemptuous of this process.
So he does it. He does it whenever there's a question from a Green MP, and he also does it whenever there's a question from a Reform MP as well.
And the SNP.
Which you will see when we listen to Lee Anderson's question later. But to engage with the logic of his clapback, if I was Keir Starmer, I wouldn't be making too much hay about what people did or didn't put in their manifestos. Just, words to the wise. Because, the cuts to disability benefits, I mean, the list goes on. Inheritance tax for farmers, fucking winter fuel payments. The list goes on and on and on. And if you believe a manifesto to be a sacred text, as you're alleging that the Green Party's was, I would just maybe check out the plank of wood in your own eye before pointing out the splinter in the Green Party's.
Or check out Ed Miliband's Stone.
Oh yeah.
Or the 2017 Labour manifesto.
The Ed Stone. You got an Ed Stone?
A couple of them.
Was that a joke about your nuts?
That was a testicles joke.
I feel really, really fed up at the moment. I just feel really
Sorry, I won't make that joke
fed
again.
up. No, I think now is a good time. Should we just slot in that? Can we slot in the clip of Torsten Bell on Newsnight last night?
Yeah.
In the meantime, some young people are going to be living on around £70 a week.
No, people with significant disabilities will be protected. They will not only will they be protected within the universal credit system, which is the one you're mentioning, but they'll also be able to apply for personal independence payments. So people with significant disabilities, if they are young, if they're currently receiving UC Health, they will continue to receive it. And if they have significant disabilities, they will still be able to apply for personal independence payment. But we are not going to write off 21-year-olds.
For those who can't, they'll be living on about 70 quid.
We are not going to write off 21-year-olds as unable to work.
For those who can't, they'll be living on about £70 a week. Could you live on 70 quid a week?
Absolutely not.
So why do you expect young people to?
We won't. We provide housing benefit as well, and we'll provide personal independence payments.
This is cash in their pocket. This 70
so are
quid
the
cash
things I
a
just
week.
mentioned to you. So are the things I just mentioned to you. That's how the benefit system works. If people need help with their rent, they receive that as well. If they need support with a disability, personal independence payments is there for that as well.
So to buy food, to pay bills,
yes,
70 quid a week. You've just told me you couldn't live on that.
Well, no, I have a mortgage to pay because of the current situation. But what I'm saying to you, and the benefit system exists to provide housing benefit support for young people as well. But what I'm saying to you is the current system is a disaster for those young people. And, it's all well and good to say you don't like every aspect of these changes, but what you are defending is a Tory system.
I'm not defending anything.
No, but
I'm asking you questions about your
Absolutely,
plans.
and that's your job. But I sat in the chamber today and heard people say, I'm worried about this aspect of the change, but there's not enough focus on the disaster that is happening in our country today. We are seeing much faster growth in claims for disability benefits than we are seeing actual levels of disability, particularly for young people.
That's a man I've never seen before.
Who dat?
Who's he?
Who's Torsten Bell?
Torsten Bell made his name by being the chief executive of the Resolution Foundation, and by appearing at various select committees, appearing on this medium to talk about how when you make cuts, it does not help a stagnating economy. If you want to get the economy on the road to success, you need to invest, you need to spend cash, and you also need to tax the very wealthy. And I think you can see it in his eyes. There was a sort of an interpretation on Twitter that was going around that said that he was speaking with contempt toward Victoria Derbyshire. I don't think it was that at all. I feel like the light in his eyes has gone. It's like he's having to talk about something that he's got no faith or belief in.
He was once a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed policy wonk, and now he's shilling for the Labour government.
Well, let me just give you the little timeline on that, because what's interesting is literally December, 1st of December, he publishes an article. He's an elected Labour MP at this point, but he publishes an article that says, the rich will pay when prodded, so let's make tax collecting great again. Okay? He's then, 1 month later, he's brought into the Treasury as sort of a parliamentary undersecretary, so he's a minister. Immediately, the language changes. Immediately. Suddenly it's all, well, we don't want to discourage investors, do we?
I mean, having been the person that interviewed Torsten, and, several million people have watched those interviews, and the economic argument, you can, if you want to rewatch them again, his economic arguments change, right? Because we had him when he was free and able to make the arguments that he actually thinks, right? And actually, if you are interested, he's written a pretty perceptive book. I interviewed him about the book, which, I wouldn't say I necessarily agree with the broad economic strokes of the arguments he was making, but nonetheless was pretty well reasoned. You would say was a kind of soft left Labourite neoliberal interpretation of how to fix the economy. Fine.
He might fit well into the Fabians.
Yeah. And then he becomes a Labour candidate, and his tune changes a little bit. And then he gets elected, and Labour go into government. And for example, he was very vocal about the two-child benefit cap and why it was immoral, why it needed to go. And obviously, it's not the Labour Party's current stated position on that is that it has to stay. And then he becomes a minister. And I guess, this is a product of party politics. We know what Torsten Bell actually thinks about these things because he has verbalized it extensively and having thought about it quite deeply, both in a book and when I've interviewed him about it and when others have interviewed him about it. You can just look at what he's saying now and go, well, that's the party line, that's the government line, and obviously if you wish to be in government, you have to take the line.
Mm-hmm.
No, I get that, and that's why reform fell apart, right? Because they're not. Rupert Lowe is not experienced enough with politics to know that sometimes you actually just have to toe the line. But then I would argue that would be more applicable to say not extending the two-child benefit cap. I could understand why he would get into government, and Torsten Bell would say, "Look, I can't have everything, so I'm not going to get out of pocket for this." But when you're looking at a government that is possibly going to plunge 1 million people deeper into poverty, I don't really know how you stand by that, considering your life's work has been talking about alleviating those people. I don't, and I guess there's a moral line on there as well about David Lammy, because his views on Palestine were extraordinarily forthright, absolutely. Over the last decade or so, that was pretty much one of his bedrocks or foundations of him being a politician. And then sort of watching him toe the line as foreign secretary, that is totally, it's totally dichotomous to what he actually thinks.
Actually had happened this week, right, when the Israelis
slipped up, didn't he?
Slaughtered another 400 people, and he came out pretty punchy on it, and the literal Foreign Office press spokesperson sort of rode back from his comments and contradicted him, and so did Number 10. And you're sort of seeing in real time. I would say it's pretty shoddy from a party management, comms perspective, pretty surely from a foreign policy perspective, that the literal foreign secretary is being contradicted by the
blob,
the executive. Like, you wouldn't expect the foreign secretary and Downing Street to be
at odds with each other,
taking a different line on something.
And I think that they think they're following a kind of Campbell line, right? The Campbell sort of like the party must be united, the line must be the same from the top all the way through, right? They think they're doing that, but it's nowhere near as clever. Nowhere near as clever.
They're just posting those shit memes on Instagram.
Yeah.
The Labour Party's Instagram presence is atrocious and should be a matter of national debate.
Why is the Labour Party so bad at posting?
It's really good crap. It's embarrassing.
I agree.
Someone's going to write that I'm a big Campbell fan now, aren't they?
Well, I'm his son.
Sometimes you can make observations and it doesn't mean that you're...
Alistair Campbell can have fans and sons.
Do you want to do another clip?
Yeah, but I think we should skip Kruger because I feel like we've spoken about welfare reforms. I think we should do a bit of Annalise Midgley to talk about Starmer's answer about adolescence, and then I want us to go deep on Lee Anderson. How does everyone feel about that?
Do we have to do Annalise Midgley?
Yes, we do. Can we roll the clip?
Oh, yeah, of course. I just read.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Everyone is talking about Adolescence, the series by Knowsley's own Stephen Graham and Christine Tomarco. It highlights online male radicalisation and violence against girls. The creators of the show are calling for screenings in Parliament and schools to spark change. So will the Prime Minister back this campaign to counter toxic misogyny early and give young men the role models they deserve?
Yeah. Prime Minister.
Yes, and at home we are watching Adolescence with our children. I've got a 16-year-old boy and a 14-year-old girl, and it's a very, very good documentary to watch, or drama. This violence carried out by young men, influenced by what they see online, is a real problem. It's abhorrent, and we have to tackle it. We are putting in specialist rape and sexual offences teams in every police force doing work on the 999 calls. But this is also a matter of culture that I think it's important that across the whole House we tackle this emerging and growing problem.
What the hell?
So, parking the adolescence discussion, because we're going to do it tomorrow.
Tune in tomorrow.
So tune in tomorrow for a full fat episode.
And think of me tonight, watching all 4 episodes.
It's really good.
Yeah, I know, but I don't have a great attention span.
You'd watch 4 hours of TikTok.
So no, I would not.
I'd watch 5 hours.
6.
It's really going to disrupt my evening.
Play it on double speed.
I wanted to listen to any questions tonight. I missed it over the weekend.
Right. So we won't talk about it any more than we already have. Why is Keir Starmer lying about having watched it?
I don't know that he is. I'm kind of on the misspoke. I think he's misspoke.
No, Ed.
Misspoke.
No.
Yep.
He doesn't know what it is. He said we enjoyed watching the documentary or drama.
Then he corrected himself. He corrected himself.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did.
He wasn't correcting himself.
I thought that I did say at the beginning there could be a benefit of the doubt here, where he was trying to validate what Annalise was saying, which is that this is real life consequences. That this pertains to what's going on with our young men at the moment.
I think he was doing a metaphor. Like it's so vital that it may as well be a documentary.
I think that Keir Starmer just appreciates
genre.
Yeah, he appreciates genre.
It actually spans genre.
Sean, on play. Sorry, Ed. 1 second. On playback, can you get the specific bit, and can we listen to just that bit again? Is that possible? No. Oh, right.
But
never mind then.
But he's not being like it's a documentary or drama. It's a documentary or drama.
No, Ed.
Yes, he is.
No.
Because sometimes there's obviously a docudrama. Do you know what I mean? There is that as a genre.
Sometimes it's a rom-com.
It's actually a mockumentary.
It's a biopic.
No.
What's your favourite docudrama?
My favourite docudrama? Say Nothing.
Say Nothing.
Yes. What's yours?
I don't know, but for some reason, Disney's Atlantis is in my head. Ratatouille. There you go. Narcos.
The Crown.
That is actually a docudrama.
Yeah, but it's not all real. The conversations aren't real.
How do you know? Were you there?
Well, no, but I can't imagine they've guessed. I can't imagine they're such good guessers.
Wow, word for word. That is impressive.
Some of it is bang on. They do like the sort of, what's his name, Martin Bashir thing.
Yeah, but the private conversations around that interview. Ollie, what's your point about you think Starmer's...
Well, why do you think he's lying?
Well, I don't.
Well,
Yeah,
so
but he is.
We think that he's talking about a docudrama. So,
would you like me to abandon my principles like Thorsten Bell?
So to be clear,
am I David Lammy?
what genre would you describe adolescence as?
A drama.
So when Keir Starmer says that's a very, very good documentary...
Or drama. He's correcting himself. You never misspoken.
Adolescence is a real thing, you know.
He pauses for about 5 seconds before he says documentary because he doesn't know what it is.
I would say that was a dramatic pause.
Then he says it's a documentary, and then he stutters repeatedly. Again, can't say anything, and adds a qualifier or drama because he's.
I think he misspoke.
Sometimes you stutter.
Okay, so let's
What
everyone.
now?
Ava, I'm going to hand you your tinfoil hat.
Yeah.
Here you go. Ollie's already wearing his.
The moon determines
so,
the tide.
So he's. It's time for Moon Talk. Why do you think he's lying?
Oh my God! They've just realised why they call it a moon cup.
Ollie, why do you think the Prime Minister?
They're real as well, aren't they?
I think he's doing it because he wants to seem relatable, right?
Uh-huh.
He wants to be like, yes, I have also seen the thing that 25 million other people have also watched.
Yeah.
I actually don't have a problem with the fact that the Prime Minister is too busy to have watched 4 hours of Netflix by now. I think it came out about 3 days ago. So, that's fine.
Some of us are going to watch the whole thing tonight.
Exactly.
And you're not even the Prime Minister.
It is the ease with which he lies. Because it's so banal, he doesn't have to say what he's saying.
You find it funny that you pronounce banal the way you do, when if you take the B off, it's
No, I'd say it the same way. Anal.
We sometimes say in the office, Ava gets the zoomies sometimes, about between 3 and 4. You kind of just go, it's moon time, let's be honest. I think you've somehow got the zoomies on the podcast. You don't say canal. Banal, canal, canal.
So you pronounce it banal?
You can't ask her that.
only on birthdays and Christmas.
Do you know Matt Hardy, Blade Runner?
What?
Anyway, so he's a content creator who makes content about. He very much doesn't take down ULEZ cameras.
What?
But seems to know someone who does. And he posted something about it being steak and blowjob day the other day.
Steak and blowjob day.
So his interests span so much.
Do you know what? 2008 masculinity was so good.
It was healthier. Eat a steak. That's what the Liver King
Steak and
came out
blowjob
of.
day. My God, that was so funny. Do you think if we'd made that a national holiday, it would solve the crisis in men's mental health?
Mr. Speaker, of course, I'm happy to celebrate Steak and Blowjob Day. I've ensured there are steaks in all the parliamentary eateries.
And I've sucked off everyone in the House of Commons. Merry steak and blowjob day to all.
Sorry, I was late. Oh, but Starmer lies.
Well, what do you want him to do? Sprint to the House of Commons, be late for PMQs because he was off watching the docudrama Adolescence?
He could literally say, I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's good.
So you admit it's a docudrama?
No.
A really
Right.
great,
Well,
great hill for you to die on.
That was a
isn't it?
fruitful
That Starmer
conversation.
is a liar. That he hasn't seen Adolescence.
He is a liar, and I think this is instructive of the willingness with which he freely lies because he tells much bigger ones.
I think that's a rather bold accusation, isn't it?
But backed up by reams and reams of evidence. Yeah.
You'd be made to withdraw that in the House.
You would maybe, yeah.
Well, I would be escorted out. I'd be escorted out, and I would pick up the fucking mace.
And you would do it.
You couldn't stop me.
You would do it. You'd be like, oh, not withdrawing. Or the camera's on me. Winking. Do you think some MPs listen to this? If you're going to do it, can you text us beforehand?
I actually hate that because do you know how much feedback? I got 2 pieces of feedback actually.
Ooh, oh no!
During your discussion about getting angry that they hold bits of paper.
Yes. Was that ableist?
Huh?
Was it ableist?
No,
Probably.
2 of them just joked that they felt personally attacked by it.
Got you.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this: plenty of people without notes today.
Absolutely,
without notes.
Do you think that that's us?
Yeah, my man who was asking about serious youth violence in Birmingham. I think Lawrence Turner was his name. Dark hair, stood up, was quite mild mannered. No notes. I applaud you, sir. If that is your name, I commend you. But I don't know what you're called.
There must be one, Lawrence.
But that's typical you, isn't it? Because you don't care about Birmingham youth violence. You're just stuck on Stephen Graham's adolescence.
Yeah.
Is it a documentary? Is it a drama?
In a non-specific northern town.
Well, yeah, based I think in Yorkshire broadly-ish. So I care about it in Yorkshire, but not the West Midlands.
You're more focused on the more banal parts of PMQs.
Right.
The banality of people.
Well, you would say banality, wouldn't you?
Banality.
I was just thinking that. Banality. I don't know.
Banality. Anality of evil.
Because you were quite hot on my pronunciation of mercantilism, yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
Okay, tell you who else didn't speak with notes. Big Daddy Lee Anderson.
Sick.
Roll the clip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I come to this chamber, Mr. Speaker, every week to ask sensible questions. And I expect sensible answers. But all I get is glazed expressions and waffle from the opposite benches. So Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the Prime Minister a very simple question on behalf of all the net zero sceptics. If we became net zero tomorrow, by how much would it reduce the Earth's temperature by? Simple question.
Minister. Mr. Speaker, net zero is of course not easy, but it's a huge opportunity to boost our growth, our jobs and our economy. And so he knows my views on that. But you know, he complains that our better ideas if they stop fawning over Putin. And I understand the member for Clacton wants to be Prime Minister. He can't even lead a party that fits in the back of a taxi.
Notably, he was missing from the chamber.
How long? How long do you think Morgan McSweeney and Matthew Doyle workshopped? He can't even lead a party that fits in the back of a taxi.
Question: are you allowed to criticise a member that's not in the chamber?
That's the sort of thing I would ask you.
Could Farage do a point of order on that?
Why would it?
Yeah, you must be able to. Yeah, because they get anything done. Because they always be like, oh, he's not in his place.
I don't think it's polite practice, but
gloves are off.
I think that sort of thing's important. But you know, whatever.
Like speaking without notes.
I agreed with you in that. I wasn't disagreeing with you. I really liked Lee Anderson's question, like a lot, because it's sort of like when you boil it, it doesn't make any sense. Like what he's asking.
Okay. That's not why I liked it.
When he's like, all right, he's going to be dining out on that now for days. Where he's like, do you know what I asked him? I asked him if we implemented net zero, how many degrees colder would it get? Well, none of that. I could say something stupid like that as well, couldn't I?
No, you could say. When he said, "I ask simple questions," he thought he meant like non-complicated, but actually he meant fucking stupid, like as in I am a simpleton.
So, but that would be like me standing up in the House of Commons and saying, Keir Starmer, if I cut down all of the ULEZ cameras, how many times will I piss my pants this Tuesday? Like, it just doesn't...
Johnny has 4 apples. Yeah.
Johnny has 4 apples. How many of those are a docudrama that, you know...
Okay.
Banally...
So the question he's asking, right? Is it because the answer is it wouldn't?
I think that he's hoping for Keir Starmer to not answer the question so that he could then walk away and say, see, he couldn't answer it. He couldn't answer it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what, Keir Starmer, if he wasn't into political point scoring, if you were actually in sort of a normal environment and actually wanted to answer that question with some credulity or whatever, you would say, well, Lee Anderson, I'll point you towards the Right Honourable Member for Boston and Skegness, who has experienced 2 floods over the last year. The flood defences, while they may not have been funded by the last Conservative government, they are also battling very high tides because of climate change. Climate change is more than just the temperature
The moon
goes up.
again.
I asked about hot, though.
But do you know what I'm saying? It's basically like, do you meet these sort of ingenuous, these sort of questions with, in the bowels of the ship with the rats? Or do you actually bring something significant and substantial in order to correct it? Because that's now just going to go off into the ether as zzzz. You could have actually taken the opportunity to say something clever.
Is it he's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't? Like I think that was Starmer's attempt to get down and dirty in a way that we've encouraged the Democrats in America to do with Trump. Like, that wasn't a sincere question. Did it merit a sincere answer?
But do you think if you gave, what my point is, sorry, I'm not making it very well, but if you gave a sincere answer every time someone was trying to do a political point scoring on you, do you think that would be better?
No, is that death by 1,000 cuts? If you're just allowing people to land blows on you, and you the blows he launched back, they're good. I think there's politically damaging, and if that's your main political opponent
I'm
in the
back
Reform
with you,
Party,
waistcoat. He's off one today. All right. Yeah.
Amen, sister. Good to have you with us. Yeah.
We could all be one team.
Nah.
No.
A throuple.
Didn't say that.
Ed is a really big fan of polyamory.
No, I'm not. I've open contempt for it.
But Starmer he very rarely makes the positive case. I think we say this quite often, right? Because there is a way of making your argument about net zero. I mean, he half did it, right? Where he said, I believe net zero can deliver growth and secure jobs in the economy. Mm-hmm. But he could also, he could invoke the language of the climate crisis is one of the gravest threats that we, not only as a society, but as a civilization face today. And I am of the view that we should try and do something about it. Is the right honourable gentleman not? Yeah,
you could say the right honourable gentleman is very concerned with net migration figures. Many people migrate to the United Kingdom because their countries have become uninhabitable. Some say that's because of climate change.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
Which one would you like to tackle?
Climate refugees as a result of drought.
Exactly.
There's probably going to be several million of them if you wanted to engage with his arguments, or you could just say, maybe we should try and do something about climate change for sure. Do you think Lee Anderson is a net zero skeptic, or do you think he's a climate change skeptic? Because that's what he said. I'm asking a brave question on behalf of net zero skeptics.
It's a slippery slope, probably.
I don't think he should have bothered. I think, I think he could have asked something. He could have asked something more substantial.
Yeah, could have done.
When I said I liked his question, I thought it was quite a clever question from the perspective of a Reform MP, because, as you've said, Starmer can't provide a satisfactory answer to the question. Sure,
but if we're going to, Ashfield is one of the most deprived regions in the country. It's got an extraordinarily high number of people who are not in work or education. Is he not concerned about his constituents?
Yeah, or maybe they're all net zero skeptics. Maybe he comes from a proud family of net zero skeptics.
The brave people of Ashfield.
Absolutely.
Brave truth tellers all.
All down the net zero skeptic club.
I'm really sorry.
I'm having a pint with real net zero skeptics. I come from all my friends are net zero skeptics.
Are they?
Yeah, I've got huge ties to the Koch brothers.
Right.
I
think that's us, guys.
Well, we'll see them tomorrow morning, won't we? After I've watched 4 hours of Adolescence.
I don't think you need to have watched all of it to be able to discuss it. Is
you
what
can
I would
skip
say.
last episode.
I think you probably. I thought the last episode was the best episode.
Fans of calling me a misandrist will say, "Oh, she won't want to watch it because she hates us."
She's too busy reading bell hooks.
I don't think I need to do that. I think that's more of a you thing, isn't it? That's how you get women.
I do tell me what to do. Young men have it hard enough as it is. without reading books.
Are we all done?
No. Anything more from you?
Not for me.
Oh.
What did you want?
I don't know.
Should we wish everyone a happy steak and blowjob day?
Is that today?
I don't think so.
Guys, just a flag, you've got 20 minutes over and there are people waiting outside to get into the room.
Oh.
Oh no.
So, it's not steak and blowjob day?
No.
So, why did I suck you off to a steak earlier?
Because it's a day that ends in Y.
Thank you very much for listening to the podcast. We'll see you on the next one.